From the capital, today, MBN TV is at the headquarter offices of the American Task Force on Palestine. This organization is a very active organization and working hard to achieve its mission. My special guest tonight is Mr. Ziad Asali, the president of the American Task Force on Palestine. Mr. Asali, how are you doing today?
Ahlan wa sahlan. Good to have you here.
Mr. Asali, let's start by talking a little bit to our viewers about the mission of the ATFP, when it started, and it came as a reaction of what?
Well, let me start out by welcoming you here and to
Thank
MBN and the strides you have made so far in broadcasting to the Arab community across the nation. So good luck.
Thank you very much.
The American Task Force on Palestine is an organization that was founded just over 5 years ago with the premise that it is in our national interest in the United States to have a state of Palestine established alongside Israel. So we start with an American premise. We start as people who are first-class citizens of the United States, who are just quite as capable of defining the national interest as anybody else. And we happen to think with seriousness and truth that it is an overriding national interest to have a state of Palestine alongside Israel. And this is where we started advocating in this city with the officials and with the think tanks and with the establishment in and out of power. And we established the same kinds of relations with the Palestinian leadership, needless to say, who are, you know,
now, you have mentioned that you're approaching this for the benefit of the national interest of the United States, since we are, after all, American citizens.
We're American citizens.
How does this help you more in your connections and sending your message with the State Department? And how do you approach also the Arab countries, which are basically have influence on this issue?
Yeah, well, we are very clear about it. We say the same thing in Arabic and in English, in private and in public. We are American citizens. We're proud of the fact that we are first-class American citizens, and then we are happy to report that this approach has made it very possible for us to get our message come across and to help open doors for us. In fact, we have been pushing on open doors. Once you say you're defending the national interest, who's going to stop you?
Sure.
It's just like you're defining the national interest in a way that had not up till then be so clearly articulated by anybody, let alone the Arab American community. We are used to being foreigners, Arabs or Muslims or Palestinians, telling the United States how wrong it is and how its policy is wrong-headed, and therefore we're opposed to it. Well, no, we say this now, perhaps the same content, with a different attitude that the Democrats criticize the Republicans who are in charge, but nobody comes back and tells them that you're not Americans, you're not defending the national interest. And with that spirit, we're working within the system.
We know the ATFP is doing a lot of efforts and trying to open a lot of doors of communication to help achieve this mission, which is a very challenging mission, and a lot have tried to do something about it, but I think the ATFP is trying to play really a major role. And lately you were on a delegation, which is a U.S.-Palestinian partnership. Tell us more about the mission of this delegation.
The U.S.-Palestinian partnership was a committee that was put together, assigned by Secretary of State Condi Rice to promote Palestinian economy and Palestinian development, even prior to the establishment of the state. And it has 4 co-chairs, and I have the privilege of being one of them. This was established back in December. This particular mission that we were sent to is called a presidential mission. And we were assigned to represent the President and the administration to the Bethlehem Palestinian Investment Conference, which was held in Bethlehem a couple of weeks ago. The purpose for the conference was to develop the Palestinian economy, even under the present circumstance, to encourage investment. The message is that Palestine is open for business. This is a Palestinian conference. We are very proud that it is a Palestinian conference. We are very proud to represent the United States in helping the Palestinians develop the Palestinian economy. Of course, for us, there is no controversy at all in our own position about this. We think that in order to have the Palestinians have a state, they must have the ability to stay in the land and to have their own economy improve so much that the best and the brightest do not leave Palestine, and that they have enough institutions, enough economic, educational, and administrative institutions to sustain their staying in the land.
Do you see that economic growth and investments in Palestine right now can lead to better political situation in a way? Do you think this is going to help even the Palestinians also to try to look themselves for more stability and see how good they can do once economy is doing good, and then the political side also is going to be affected?
Let us be clear, this is a two-track approach. Without a political development that leads to a state, and that everybody knowing that this effort will lead to an independent, viable state in the West Bank and in Gaza with its capital in Jerusalem, then all the efforts that any one of us puts in developing the economy or any other aspect will eventually fail. So it has to be grounded in a political objective that has to be realized. Having said that, if we do not improve the economy of the Palestinians, and that means lifting so much of the impediments that stand in the way of the Palestinian economy that result from the occupation, like checkpoints, like crossing in and out, like moving goods, moving individuals, all of these terrible impediments on the people and the economy. Part of the Palestinian economic development is working with the Israeli government to lift those sanctions. And I have to say, one of the encouraging signs about the Palestinian Investment Conference was this very particular issue. I had myself the role of negotiating with the Israelis the issues of access and mobility during the days of the conference for the attendees. We ended up having 1,200 individual investors who came to this conference, and we were expecting 200. So it was unbelievable. In fact, these contracts signed during the conference were $1.4 billion in investment in agreements already signed. So there was real progress. But I was saying the cooperation of the Israelis was a must in order to have the conference succeed. And the point that I started out with the Israelis, if you do not want to cooperate on access and mobility, let's just stop this conference right now, because we don't want the investors to be soured on Palestine and never to come back and invest in it. So the investment is more important than the conference. I added another condition actually in my discussions with the Israelis, and that started with the Defense Minister Barak and then his Secretary General, and we met here and in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and then put the connections with the other Palestinians who were running the conference. We added the issue of dignity. We did not want anybody to come to this conference and be treated in a shabby and unpleasant and undignified way, because these investors have the option to go anywhere they wanted to go, and if they come and face such undignified treatment, they would not
go
come
somewhere
back.
else to invest.
I have to say that eventually the conference went very well. The attendees were treated very well. There was no problem with the crossings at the LMB or the airport, or with the checkpoints for them. So that proved to us that it is possible to do it for a short period of time, 2 or 3 days. Now our effort should be, okay, we've done it once, why can't we do it more and more and more? This is how we think we can proceed.
Now, since the economy and the political situation, they are linked, how do you assess the current conflict right now? And how do you see other neighboring countries playing a role, like let's say some countries such as Iran or Syria are always mentioned when it comes to what's going on right now in Palestine and the conflict. Can their role be directed in a different way to help the Palestinians and help resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict right now, or could it be controlled?
As I just told you, we ourselves, and we are in full agreement with the Palestinian Authority's position on this. We think that the solution will come through negotiations. It will not come through armed conflict or imposing one's will by arms, either on part of the Israelis or the whole Arabs or Muslims combined. So they talk about fighting, etc., has failed in the past and will fail in the future. There is no military solution. So we're talking about negotiating a way out. And even the Palestinians, in the present very weak condition they are, have a very strong negotiating position, the strength of the weak. The Palestinians are the ones who have to sign on the dotted line eventually the statement that says Israel is accepted in the Middle East, and that's it. Once the Palestinians sign that, Israel will be accepted. So the price for that signature will have to be a Palestinian state, like I mentioned earlier. And the people who are opposing this and talking about resistance and fight and etc., we think are not able to deliver. It's just like making agreements and understanding harder. If they stop at that, that will be just fine. If they threaten, if they start wars, it will be just other catastrophes that will befall above everything else the Palestinian people themselves. A series of disasters that have affected them. So we do hope that the process of negotiations will lead to fruition. And this is where Israel itself is under, the test now. It has not provided a whole lot in previous negotiations. It has weakened the positions of the moderate Palestinian negotiators, and now it is challenging times for all of us to see that we modify that position on behalf of Israel and see how effective the United States is going to be in doing that. Not imposing, not pressuring, but reasoning with the Israelis.
Talking about the role of the United States, we know that our president, President Bush, is trying to focus a lot on this conflict right now. Do you think there might be any hope for him to reach an agreement before the end of his term, which is coming in this November?
Yes. Let me tell you first, I know how unpopular the president is in the Arab American community and in Palestine and across the Arab and Muslim world. It's fine. We take note of that. We want to say something. This president has given the Palestinians for the first time a policy that states clearly that the United States supports the establishment of a Palestinian independent, viable Palestinian state. So we have that as much as the Jews had the Balfour Declaration in 1917. We have that now as policy of the United States. The implementation did not work. We all know that. Now, a few months left will make some difference, will not make a great deal of difference. I happen to think that a conflict-ending agreement will not happen in the course of the next several months. A conflict ending. There may be some kind of an agreement that's loose and vague and not clear that would make the transition to the next president more possible for him to build on what is being done now. So that's what we think will happen, actually.
But as you might have mentioned before, you don't see President Bush or even President Olmert, since they lost their people, their public opinion, you don't think they're going to try to force any agreement to try to gain back their public? No.
I do not think the president here will pressure anybody to move this agreement along. And I do not see Prime Minister Olmert in a strong enough position to actually deliver, although the political establishment in Israel, the coalition that's presently governing Israel, could survive the removal of Olmert with the replacement of another leader from Kadima and continue the same policy. But even that will not lead to a conflict-ending agreement because the issues are just too many and the gap is too wide. But that would give us all, including the Palestinian predicament, which is also a problem because they're divided at least in two huge factions and geographically, etc. But at least the Palestinian leadership can negotiate on behalf of the Palestinians in a position that is officially designated by all the parties. However, what we can hope for and we're working for is let us move things forward enough during the days of this administration in the United States and beyond the Olmert days so that the next president will have something to work with. I think that is realistic. I think that's doable. But like everything else, nothing happens if we don't work for it. We ourselves and others have to work for it. It's just waiting. Time itself doesn't change things.
We have to work on it.
It's what we make use of the time that will make the difference.
Coming back to us and the United States, and our concern right now is the presidential elections.
Yes.
And a lot of people are looking how the new administration is going to be and how is it going to handle the local issues, whether economy or the local politics, as well as the foreign policies. How do you see the Arab American community getting involved in those presidential elections, and are they doing enough?
Well, I have been, part of the Arab American experience for a long time, and I'm encouraged by the trend of Arab Americans being more and more involved in the system. You cannot be an outsider. You cannot be from Fatah or Jabha Sha'biyya or from Ikhwan Muslimin or Qawmin Suriyin and come and have the establishment in the United States or the people of the United States listen to you with any degree of seriousness. So you have to be part of this system, Democrat, Republican, Green, whatever you want, in order to make your point. And I see a trend in the Arab American community to understand the political context here and the participation from the local level and the national level. Involvement in the elections is a major way that the Arab American and Muslim American voter can have an impact. I don't think that there is any unified position that all these communities can agree on, but it doesn't really matter as long as you climb up the ladder within the party system and have a say and have an input and have people know you, not just having you know them and listen to you if you have
your voice heard.
Then you are doing what you can do. We at the American Task Force on Palestine, of course, are non-partisan. We started our work with this administration. We tried our best to be as close to the decision makers and to give them what we say in Arabic and in English to you on TV and to a private conversation and to the president in Palestine. We say the same thing. We will do the very same with the next administration. We will not ourselves be involved with the election process, but we individually can have our preferences, as should all Arab Americans. They should assess the positions that the candidates take on our issue and on other issues and make up their mind, but be in the process. Don't be foreigners. Don't accept to be second-class people.
How do you think, as you just said, they have to assess each of the candidates? As Americans, not only Arabs, Americans, what should they look for when they're voting?
Well,
how can...
Sure. Actually, individuals have their own preferences. But when we talk about the public interest in this country for the Palestinian Americans or Arab Americans or Muslim Americans, we can see two broad areas of analysis. One is the civil rights issue. That it is very important that each individual gets protected by law, and that generalizations, racism, biases, prejudices translated into practice should be denied and denounced by all candidates and by all parties. That is a major part of the civil rights coalition that the Arab Americans should be active in. The other is the foreign policy issues. There is a wide array of foreign policy issues that may be of concern to different individuals differently. Somebody from Lebanon probably cares more about what's happening in Lebanon. There is always the Palestinian issue. There is Iraq. So people should see where do they think these candidates stand and how do they, agree or disagree with them, and reflect that both publicly and privately in what they say and what they do and how they vote.
Coming back to the American Task Force on Palestine and its representation and relation with other organizations. The ATFP, how does it work with other organizations, and how does it work with the whole Arab American community?
See, we are, several of us used to be very involved with ADC, and in fact, after the September 11th disaster, I was president of ADC, and I went to the board and told them we have these two huge problems, the civil rights issue and the foreign policy issue, and they do not fit exactly under the same umbrella in the same organization, but we could do it once removed, and I suggested that we do the task force on Palestine, but keep it as part of ADC, but remove it, because there are several approaches, completely different and opposing approaches for the civil rights and the foreign policy issues. After some negotiations, the board did not seem to agree to this, and I told them, outrightly, that we're going to do something for Palestine specifically, and it will be a standalone, and we parted amicably, and we support what ADC does tremendously. I think they're holding their convention this year. We congratulate them on this, and we like to have all Arab American organizations, Muslim American organizations help us, help our community get into the system and not be opposed to the system. You can criticize the policy, but you should not be perceived as anti-American. It is one thing to be critical of the policy and something else to be a foreigner acting as a foreigner and as opposed to the country, not just to the policy.
Mr. Asali, a final message to the community from your offices here in Washington, D.C. What would you like to tell the Arab Americans nationwide, all those who are watching now, the millions watching you? What would you want to tell them?
First off, I'm privileged to be able to communicate with them, and what I tell them is that it is possible to do things. We started with nothing, just an idea that as Americans we can define the national interest. We established all these relations, and they're genuine, and they're all based on mutual respect. Neither the Americans nor anybody else would accept anybody who would be strident and aggressive and yelling, nor would be crawling on their belly and begging and pleading. None of these approaches works. It's just like a self-respecting, other-respecting role, just a business problem. We have a problem called Palestine. How do we deal with it? Our relations with the Palestinian leadership, our relation with the American establishment, both parties, the Congress, and is as effective as anybody probably has ever been, and our relations with the Palestinians is excellent. We have great relations with the Israelis who support a two-state solution, and we do not hesitate to give them credit when they move forward. So I think, and with the other Arab governments who also support this sort of thing, we have no financial relations with any government whatsoever, including our own, and this is how we like to keep it.
Mr. Ziad Asali, we support your mission, and hopefully you will be able to achieve the goal of this for the benefit of the United States first, and then for the whole world, because we know this issue is creating conflicts all over. Thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully we will see you again and talk more about the latest things going on with the ATFP.
So what's the latest is our gala on October 12th.
So we definitely will show the people what's going to be happening at the gala.
It is a real event.
We saw the previous gala last October, and we definitely are sure this gala is going to be also more and more, has more involvement as well.
And we had Condi Rice the year prior to that. It is presenting to the American people and the American establishment in Washington, D.C., the Palestinians as just as qualified, dignified, self-respecting, and contributing to the country as anybody else. And I think it is a political message. It is part of the message that we give to this country and to our community. It's doable.
Thank you, Mr. Asali.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was it from the Capitol today with Mr. Ziad Asali. Stay tuned to MBN TV and enjoy the rest of the programs.